Thierry Henry is regarded as one of football's legends because of what he achieved with Arsenal and then with FC Barcelona, where he won every possible title in his career. But what many people don't know is that before that, he played for Juventus, and that's because he was there for just 6 months, and it was a failed experiment that almost destroyed his career before it even began in the first place, because everyone expected him to become the next Juventus star, being the talent in the making at that time. But the opposite happened, and he failed for a number of reasons, and that's what we're going to find out in this video, so keep watching until the end. Everyone started talking about Thierry Henry as a talent with bright future when he led his club Monaco to the semi-finals of the Champions League in the 97-98 season. His fame grew when he was called up by the national team that same year to help them win the World Cup, attracting attention as a speedy winger who created plenty of chances and scored goals at the same time, as he was the team's top scorer that edition. Everyone expected the biggest clubs to snap him up quickly, but that summer no one signed him because Monaco was asking for a lot to let him go. However, 6 months later, in January transfer window, Juventus made a 12.5 million euros bid for the world champion's talent. As you can see, when they signed him, they expected a lot from him, but they were disappointed, because when he arrived at Juventus, his coach was Marcello Lippi, but only 3 weeks later, the coach left, and Carlo Ancelotti came in to replace him, who in turn had just started his coaching career and had never coached a big club. You can find a video in our channel in which we discussed in detail why he failed at Juventus. So when Carlo arrived, he didn't know how to use him properly because of his inexperience and the fact that he took over the team during the season and in February. He also played with 4-4-2 and sometimes with 3-5-2, and those two formations didn't suit Henry at the time. Now you may say, what you are talking about? Arsene Wenger always played with 4-4-2 and Henry had the best seasons of his career. And that was because with Arsenal he played as a striker, but when he was at Juve or before, he was a winger and never thought of becoming a striker. So much so that after his departure and his success with Arsenal, Ancelotti said, "I never imagined he could play as a striker. He never told me." As you know, the coach is supposed to know his players and test them in several positions, but due to his lack of experience at the time, he didn't do that. So he failed in this way of playing, especially in 3-5-2, because he had to get back and help the defense. And before, he was only used to creating chances and scoring goals. He was never used to defending, especially as Italian football was built on defense, and Serie A at the time was difficult to play in, which limited his attacking abilities. In fact, when he arrived at Juventus, coach Marcello Lippi told him it's better for him to play as a striker. But as we said, he left the club, and when Ancelotti arrived, the idea was never implemented, and he had to cover the entire left flank from defense to attack. So Ancelotti never thought of using him as a striker. Henry also never thought of and never accepted playing in that position, as he used to say, "I made my mark and won the World Cup as a winger. Why should I change position for a striker whose role is only to score goals, when the winger can create chances and score goals while helping defensively?" And since his arrival, he had told everyone, "I will play like I did at Monaco as a winger, on the right or on the left. And people shouldn't expect me to score too many goals. I'm not like David Trezeguet." So what changed to make him a striker after that? The reason is simple, and it's Arsene Wenger. He's known him since he was coach of Monaco, where Henry played with the under-19s, and it was he who gave him the opportunity to play for the first team. So after joining Arsenal, Arsene Wenger told him that he's wasting his time playing as a winger, and because he respects him, he took his advice and started the season as a striker. At first he was frustrated that his teammates were scoring more than him, but after that he managed to combine his speed and experience as a winger to become an outstanding striker and the star of Arsenal and the Premier League. But the fact that he played in a different position wasn't the only reason he left Juventus, but there were several other reasons, which started to appear each time. First, he spoke to 4-4-2, but he didn't give much details, where he said, "It's true that in my last games with Juventus I didn't score or assist, but I left Juventus for reasons I don't want to divulge." But then he gave some reasons in other interviews where he said what it means. "My problem at Juventus was with the club's general manager. Something happened between us. I don't want to go into too many details, but he didn't respect me. If it wasn't him, I would say." Also, the club's administration wanted to sign Brazilian striker Marcio Amoroso, who is playing for Udinese, and they wanted to offer Thierry Henry in an exchange without telling him, which made him think that they didn't trust his abilities to get rid of him in this way and so quickly. And so he told them what it means: I won't go to Udinese, and I won't stay here at Juventus either. I will leave for any team. Recently he said, I could have been loaned out to any world club and my career could have been ruined, because as you know, most players who are loaned out after everyone has expected a lot from them have their careers ruined if they are not given the opportunity and used properly.
If I didn't have any character, maybe I would have been on loan on some weird team and lost my way.
But fortunately for him, Arsenal were interested in him. In fact, Arsene Wenger had wanted to sign him since the summer of '98, that is immediately after the World Cup. But Monaco had big financial demands, and they didn't manage to sign him, and he ended up at Juventus 6 months later. When he went to Italy, all the newspapers wrote that Henry had given up his dream of playing for Arsenal, because he really wanted to play for them. But his dream was delayed to become reality after Juventus gave him up for just 16 million euros. And you know what happened next, where he made history with them. The Juventus general manager recently responded to all this criticism by saying what it means. Thierry Henry left because he suffered from tight marking in Italy. Also, he did not have the patience to sit down on the bench and fight to become a starter. And we knew he would succeed at Arsenal. Also, Arsene Wenger wanted him because he understood that there were more spaces in English football. But when we sold him, it wasn't a mistake, because we bought him for just 12 million euros, sold him for 16 million and replaced him with David Trezeguet. And by the way, Trezeguet went on to become one of the club's top scorers. So here is Thierry Henry's 6-month spell at Juventus, during which he played 20 games, scored just 3 goals and provided 2 assists. And he described it as the worst stage of his football career. So in your opinion, if he had succeeded at Juventus, would his career be better than it is now, or it's a good thing he left? Tell us in the comments below.